Welcome back, friends. And today could be a doozy, for lack of a better way to describe it. I'm going to share a story with you to kind of kick this off. And I slept on the decision to record this podcast right now on this topic because it's one that I have really, really strong opinions about. It's one that probably, if we, dig back and maybe I do some therapy, will be the impetus for all of it, for why I started this podcast, why I have a private coaching business, why more things are going to be offered to all of you the rest of this year, why I have a mission deep within my being to allow all of you the things that you need in order to thrive inside of corporations. Because what is happening today in the world, friends, is horrible. So, what are we talking about today? You want a little tip, a little hint? We are talking about how women treat each other in the business world. And men, please do not shut this off, because you are witness to, you are conspirators with, and you have the responsibility to take action if you see anything that I talk about today happening. And we're going to go through all of those things. Now, why was I hesitant to record this episode? Well, frankly, it's going to make some people uncomfortable. Candidly, I have to be a little bit careful about my personal stories related to this. And so I won't be sharing a lot about me and my career today. I can tell you that there's also been a chapter of a book written that will get published one day that has all of the juice, all of the tea, all of the things in it, with lessons that I wish I had learned, lies I had told myself, and how I would implore all of you to do it differently if you were in my shoes. But that's not for today. So why all of a sudden, Melissa, did you get super fired up around the topic of how women are treating each other in business? Because let's be clear, on an average day, it's pretty status quo and not in a good way. So here's the thing. This week, on March 8th, which I think was a Wednesday, it was International Women's Day. Interestingly enough, the organization that champions International Women's Day picks a theme every year. And their theme this year was, and is, not was, equity. Now, in the universe, societal conversations, politics, business, there is a lot of time given to the discussion around equality, equity, inclusion. And candidly, I don't think anybody understands what they're saying. I believe that these are buzzwords that we throw out there so that we can show that we are aware. But I personally haven't seen a lot of behaviors change, and those around me that I've worked with, I've worked for, even that I know personally, to state that this is actually a priority for us to make a shift. Here's what I mean. So let's just be really clear on the definitions. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it plays into the story that I'm going to tell. Equality is when everybody is given the resources or the opportunities that are exactly the same. Everybody. You find 100 people, they have exactly the same resources and exactly the same opportunities. Equity is where the confusion sets in, because this requires awareness. Because equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances. Every single one of us is unique. We come from different places. We have a different level of understanding, education, intellect. We have different socioeconomic considerations. Each person has different circumstances. And when something is being done equitably, things are allocated to the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. So if each one of us has different circumstances, then we're each getting allocated the resources that we need or the opportunities that we need so that all of us collectively have an equal outcome. This does not mean we all get the same resources. In fact, it means that we distinctly do not. That we recognize the uniqueness of the circumstances of the individual, and we provide what is necessary for an equal outcome based on that. This concept is nuanced and it is emotional because there's subjectivity involved. Who is the overriding authority about what resources are needed to tie to which circumstances to achieve an equal outcome? This is the basis for every argument you're seeing today. Whether it's a conversation about having more women on boards, whether it is a political conversation around health insurance, whether it is a conversation about if there should be police officers on school campuses. In the end, always, it comes back to being a conversation about equity. And when we do not understand how to identify the different circumstances and give resources or opportunities uniquely to achieve an equal outcome, disaster strikes. And I'm going to use that word, disaster, because what happened this week was disastrous. Now, I need to pause here and tell all of you right now, I am not naming names. I am not calling people out directly. But what I'm going to share with you is a real life thing unraveling right now that I am tangentially involved in. And gross, icky. Those are the words I was using to describe the circumstance yesterday. I am educated. I'm a C-suite executive, and the best word that I have is icky. Damn right. Probably have some more vulgar descriptors, but icky, like need to take a shower. I feel gross. This is awful. Those were my reactions yesterday. And when I got up this morning, I was kind of hoping that I would have shaken it off a little bit. You know what? I'm more fired up now than I was yesterday because damn it, I have had enough. And I'm embarrassed that this happened for this person. And I'm embarrassed that this person doesn't realize that. And the hundreds of probably thousands of people that are championing the point of view embarrasses me even further because tangentially, we're all connected. So here's what happened. It was International Women's Day. I have a lot to say about what people do on days like International Women's Day or Valentine's Day. Let's use Valentine's Day as an example. It's the one day a year where all of a sudden everybody's happily married. It's the one day a year where you're seeing people with their friends celebrating that they're okay being single. None of it's real. None of it. Nobody's coming forward and saying, marriage is super messy and complicated and hard. Nobody's coming forward and saying, I really wish I had a person. I don't like being alone. I love my friends, but it's not the same. Nobody is saying that. Instead, you're getting the rose-colored glasses, social media filtered version of reality. And you know what? This happens on International Women's Day every stinking year. Every year I go into LinkedIn and then immediately have to close it down because I see people that I know I have had experience with that don't believe what they're posting. They don't act in that the other 364 days of the year. It saddens me that a day that is supposed to inspire action is used as a greeting card holiday. Another podcast for another day. I told you this one's going to get me this week, guys. So here's what happened. It's International Women's Day, and a woman that has a very large following is very recognized in her field, is what I would say well known in the circles that I operate in, came out publicly and slammed, not even the right word, an organization whose mission is to uplift women, publicly this was done. Not only was this done publicly, but there was an invitation for media outlets to get involved. There were hundreds of people who commented on the social media post that went out. It was so horrible that the organization that was slammed publicly responded and then also privately responded. A woman with influence who had achieved professionally what many dream of, used her voice and her power to obliterate other women. This is just today's narrative. I can guarantee it's probably not even available if you go look for it right now. It's buried under whatever the next news headline is. What she did was she intentionally took the opportunity on a day where news was going to be trending about women-led organizations and companies and lambasted one. And that's just not okay. What's unfortunate is her message, her point of view, her call to actions were valid. There wasn't anything in her feedback that I could argue with. Candidly, and I'm not going to get into it here, but I'm not an expert in DEI. I have a lot to learn and a lot to talk about and be educated around. And on this podcast, we're going to start bringing in people from all sorts of different walks of life so that we can all learn together, because that's the only way that we shift the system. So I'm not going to speak on the topics that she raised, but I could see there were valid points. And through the comments that I did read, because I didn't read many, there were experiences that people had that were real and were provided as evidence that what she was asking for to take place is warranted. What isn't warranted is weaponizing your platform to tear down another. I don't care what the organization or the human has done. I don't care. There is a right way and a wrong way to do it, and taking your personal brand and then rallying your personal network to attack publicly is disgusting. Now, I know many of you right now are saying, but hey, that's what happened with Adidas and Kanye West. Hey, that's what happened with Kyrie. Hey, that's what's happening with Walgreens right now in the state of California. No, it's different. Here's why. There was a call to action with everything that happened. People asked for Adidas to sever their business relationship with Kanye West for a specific reason. People have the ability to say, I don't want to work with that company anymore because I don't like who they are using to represent them. Cool, you can get really loud about it. In this case specifically, this human went after individuals. This individual attacked their character and their business practices. It would have been different if the call to action had been change these policies, be more inclusive. I'm gonna remove my affiliation because it's just not aligned with how it currently operates. All of those are fine. But the call to action to tear it down, to burn it, to not be willing to help offer solutions, as let's use Adidas, for example. I'll continue to do business with you if you stop being in partnership with somebody with this point of view. That's a different situation. What makes this even worse, specifically, is that the cry out, the all call, the public rant was because the purpose, I guess, I'm trying to be a little bit vague here, was to give those that don't have a voice. So this outcry was on behalf of others who did not ask for it to happen. So here's the thing. I said it made me feel icky. The reason it made me feel icky is because I had intentionally sought out this person to be in my circle, my close circle, as a trusted advisor, as a mentor. I had even paid thousands of dollars to attend a training that unfortunately got canceled because I thought I could learn something that by us being in community together would open additional doors and opportunities, that this is how I could find my next move. This is how I could find a board seat. This is how I could continue to grow and develop into whom I want to be professionally. And the universe did me a really good service and canceled the training that I was supposed to go to and continued to just send me signs that I needed to wait and figure out exactly what to do. And you know what? Thank you, universe, because what I'm going to wait and do is just eat the money. And I'm not going to be associated with this person because this person does not represent what I want to be. And what is that, Melissa? What are you saying? This happens every single day and every single business across the world. Women do not support women. They can say that they do, and there are very few, I don't want to say everybody, there are very few out of the collective whole whose mission it is to pay it forward, give a leg up, and help a woman succeed. This one example on this public stage and forum has demonstrated what happens in private day in and day out, and why so many women are leaving the business world. We all talk about how horrible it was to be, I don't know, in high school or junior high, how mean girls are. I've had so many conversations with parents over the years where I have said out of my mouth, I'm so glad I have boys because they're not mean to each other like girls are. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's nature or nurture. I don't know when it starts. I just know that from a very early age, girls are in competition. Women are in competition with each other in a way that men and boys are not. And it has to stop. We're in a world where we see that only one of us can win and succeed. It's not an us against them mentality. It's an us against us. And for decades, I thought that was normal. See, here's this interesting thing, and I don't think that I'm alone, but I also think that we don't talk about it, which is why I'm talking about it here. I was alone, very lonely for the majority of my career. I'm an introvert. I don't have a lot of friends by design. I like to be by myself. And that's my human design, and now I know and makes sense. But at work, I was always looking over my shoulder and watching my back. And it's because I had been trained to, candidly. As soon as I achieved any sort of level of success, voices of dissent came, because that's what happens when you start to achieve and get promoted and all those things. There's naysayers out there. And the naysayers were always female. They were not male. In fact, except for very few occasions, men were the catalyst to me getting promoted. And yes, I was in a male-dominated field, and maybe that's something to do with it, but I don't think that it does, because even from a very early point of view in my corporate career, every time there was blame to be laid, a woman would do it at the feet of another woman, often me. And no, I'm not playing the victim. I can look back at things very judiciously and point out, yeah, I really screwed up there and I deserve to get called on the carpet. But see, the thing is that when women lay the blame, they do it differently than men. Men call you out. They get in your face. They embarrass you in a meeting sometimes, but it's happening. Public, to your face, you know what's going on. You know what women do? They talk behind your back. They go to your boss and close the door and they whisper about you. They don't tell you directly if they're concerned about a way that you're working or your communication style or your relationship, your working relationship with each other. They do not do that. They undermine your authority. They go behind your back. They start to build narratives that gain momentum and then attention and then a fan base. And often the driver is because they want what you have. Often they see that you're in the way from them achieving whatever goal it is that they have set for themselves. Often they see you as a direct threat. Somehow, somewhere in this world where we talk about women empower women and let's lift each other up and let's find a way to have equity, gender parity, and salary, we don't really mean it. We don't. I just came out of a multi-year toxic work environment. All of this was at play. I can tell you that it's worse the higher up you go. I can tell you from experience that the lonelier it is, the higher you climb, the less allies you have, the more people you have picking you apart. And eventually you leave where they ask you to. These are the social construct inside of corporations, and we ignore it. We do things like celebrate International Women's Day. We have signs up that say, all you need to do is sparkle, be your authentic self, right? There's policies in place to avoid this. But let me tell you, there are studies that have proven that the bullying that happens in the workplace is most often women bullying women. Candidly, men are too afraid to bully a woman at this point because it's so obvious. But when women are bullying women, you know what is said most often? Well, that's just how women work. That's just how they interact with each other. It gets brushed off. Nobody wants to deal with it because it's messy and it's ugly and it's catty and it's not based in fact and it's hard to prove. Almost all of the bullying that happens in a corporate setting is from one woman to another. Sit with that. So what do we do? What do we do? It's doomsday over here. We hate each other. Melissa, the whole world is set up to fail. What do? We point it out. And this scenario that I told you, what's even worse than what she did publicly, her followers' call to action was, let's start our own thing. Let's band together and tear down that other thing because we know better. No, you don't know better. You just know differently. If we were all supporting each other, wouldn't we be working together collectively for the common good to achieve the same goal? No, but what we've decided to do is splinter off, start our own thing with our own point of view, our own people and fan base, which in the end is not going to serve in the way that this current one is perceived not to serve. So what do? We call it out. We point it out as it's happening live and in person. That is not okay. Men, this is the part of the podcast where I need you to sit up and listen because you're witness to it every single day. If you see a woman creating a narrative about another woman that's going to negatively impact her, you have an obligation to step in and say, this is not productive. Let's find a better way to work together. Let's solve this problem and then see it through. Because when you stop the behavior in its tracks when it starts, it's easy to solve for. But when you let it fester, when you let these relationships get toxic, when you allow bullying into the workplace, when you have women coming after women, once that snowball starts down the hill, everybody's going to get flattened. Everybody. This situation that happened this week, the blowback on that snowball hitting the bottom of the hill was on thousands of people. By deciding to take something public, the potential negative impact is on every single person that's affiliated with the circumstance. Now, hopefully, like I said, the news cycle goes fast and this goes away, but there was not a moment's consideration around who is this going to impact if I do this? Instead, it was all about her. It's going to make her feel better. It's going to get her attention for this narrative and being a champion of causes, which are all causes we need to be champions of. It had nothing to do with supporting other women. It had everything to do with her point of view, and consequences be damned. And that's what's happening inside of companies right now. I'm going to do my thing and I don't care who I run over. And if I have to get nasty along the way, well, that's how I'm going to do it. And you know what? Leaders that celebrate that behavior, who promote people that are performing in that manner, who give awards and incentives and bigger bonuses because you got through the obstacles. It didn't matter who you had to take down. You are teaching them that this is behavior that warrants success. This is behavior we're going to reward. This is behavior you want to see. And you know who else you're teaching? You're teaching every single person underneath that leader. When a woman takes out another woman inside of a corporate setting, you have now taught every single person, male and female, that the best way to succeed in this company is to take out your competition by any means necessary. And let me tell you, that is not what we're here for. That's why people are running to the hills to start their own businesses. That's why people are not staying in jobs longer than 3 years. It's why the millennials, candidly, are saying, I can't do this. I can't handle it. My mental health is at risk in this environment, because it is. It's not mental toughness. It's not that we and the older generations are just of sturdier stock. It's because we've developed calluses over the years, because we expect this behavior and we have developed armor to protect ourselves, and it has to stop. So what do? We call it out. We don't put up with it. Those of us that are in leadership positions and can actually shut it down and stop it from happening, that's what we do. Over and over and over and over. And we teach the better way. We teach our teams how to communicate. We teach them how to share different perspectives and work through those perspectives to get to an outcome. In some cases, we're super direct. And we say, this behavior is not allowed here. And if we see it again, you are out. Sometimes you need to make an example of people. Where all of this comes from, in the end, is every single one of us being very clear around what our value systems are, and then adhering to those, and communicating to others what our value systems are, and asking them to respect them. When you come from a place of values, when you come from a place of integrity and inclusivity, it gets very difficult to operate in a world where woman's going to get woman and we're all in a competition. This requires every single leader to change their approach to how they lead and manage. I know this seems impossible and insurmountable, but it starts with every single interaction that you have every day. Every single one. I implore all of you, during your meetings next week or the rest of this week, every single meeting that you have, write down every negative thought you have about a colleague. Every single one. I know it seems a little bit strange, but do it. And after a week, go back and review all of those negative comments, what you thought about who, and see what the pattern is, and then figure out what you're going to do. For example, if 90% of the negative comments that you write down are about female colleagues, maybe you should ask yourself why. What's the bias that you're carrying around? How is that representing and demonstrating itself out into the world? What are you doing because you have this negative bias, and what can you do to address it? Maybe you have a long list and 90% of it is about one human. There's work to do there. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to approach that person? How are you going to work on the relationship? How are you going to provide them feedback? How are you going to improve the situation? See, what we don't understand is that we're constantly processing thoughts. And our brains really love negative things. Awareness is the very first step. Calling it out is the step that we do following that. And changing our behavior. We all need to take responsibility for our interactions and who we interact with. We have a responsibility, all of us, to treat each other better. This situation this week, super unfortunate. Still really frustrated. I wish that I could share a couple of personal stories right now with you that would highlight exactly how damaging this sort of behavior can be inside of a corporate setting. What we're doing to each other, we as women, is disgusting. We should be helping each other. We should be standing and showing the way. We should be holding the flashlight and saying, this is the path to follow. This is the way to go. And we're not. Not by a long shot. So your homework is for you to make your list. And then after you make your list, you're going to decide what you want to do about it. What's your bias that the list shows you? What can you now not unsee? What relationships are you going to focus on? And what are you going to do? Are you going to provide feedback? Are you going to ask for advice? Are you going to go to your mentor and discuss what you found? Are you going to try to build a real human connection with the person and understand where they're coming from? It's up to you to decide what you want to do with the homework. If you do go through with the exercise, and I really, really think you should, you're not going to like what you see, probably. It's going to tell you things about yourself that you need to work on. And that is the whole point. Because all of us, male, female, non-binary, we are all contributing to this repeated situation. Our societal constructs come into the office. They frame our narratives. They determine how we interact with others. And if we have an unconscious bias that girls are just mean to each other, then when we see it happening unfold in front of us, even if they're adults, we ignore it. And that has to stop. This topic is uncomfortable. And the call to actions are even more uncomfortable because you have to do work on yourself and then you have to do work with others. This podcast, this conversation, this community is here because we all acknowledge that we have a part to play in shifting the corporate paradigm. We all agree that we love to work and that we want to do it in an environment that's healthy mentally, physically, for us all. We all agree that it's too complicated to be successful inside of a business that isn't ours, and that we want to stay here. And we need each other to be able to achieve greatness. Every business is a people business. And the success or the failure of that business is tied directly to the relationships, the culture, and the longevity of the organization. You have a role to play in this. You are not an innocent bystander. You are not a unicorn who has never experienced anything that I mentioned today. It's happening now, in front of you, today. And if you're not seeing it, it's because you're not looking. If you're not seeing it, it's because you're looking at everything through your bias and determining that that behavior is just normal. It stops when we start behaving differently. It stops when we start speaking up. It stops when we say over and over again, that's enough. So I'm going to continue to ponder what I'm going to do about this current situation that's unfolding and how I do or don't comment in a public forum aside from this podcast. I'm leaning towards not, but maybe I'll do something on, Instagram or something just to be real clear around where I stand. And I'm not currently in a situation where I'm exposed to these circumstances on a regular basis. So what I'm going to do is offer to be a resource for all of you. And I'm going to be available through my DMs and Instagram, or you can set up some private time to talk. And we're going to figure this out together. Because until we all start taking action, nothing will change. This won't be the last time we talk about this, but we'll be talking about it through a different lens and providing additional guidance on what we can do to succeed. So until then, you're wise, you're capable, and you're strong, and I believe in you.